NASA transforms to a resistance movement and a change of strategy on repeat election.
Based on the progress that has been made in the Commission, the elections are scheduled will go on tomorrow, the 26th of October 2017.
Challenges in NASA strongholds, but electoral body ready for disputed exercise.
To those who wish not to vote, your rights are also equally protected by the very same Constitution. But let no one infringe on his brother's or sister's right.
Uhuru Kenyatta's final plea as a divided nation heads to a repeat presidential election.
Thank you for joining us on Decision 2017. My name is Mark Masai and our sign language interpreter is David Agondoa.
And I'm Smriti Vidyarthi.
Two leaders, two messages, one country.
That is where we begin tonight on the eve of the presidential election.
Azimio ya Uhuru Park Nairobi kwa Wakenya wote kulote ambao wako wanatusikiza. Tunasema kesho 36 hakuna nini? Hakuna nini? 26 October, no? No?
I call on each and every one of us to turn out once again and vote.
Well, despite the political heat around the repeat election tomorrow, the IEBC chairman Wafula Chebukati says the election will go on as planned.
Chebukati says the security concerns raised by the Commission have been addressed and they are satisfied with the technical plans in place.
The IEBC chair says the Commission will consider postponing the election in areas considered troubled and where election preparations and voting could be disrupted.
Coming in the wake of reports of deep divisions in the Electoral Commission, the chairman and his commissioners appeared together for the final verdict on the repeat presidential election that has been clouded in uncertainty.
Every great journey of success gets to the point where tough decisions have to be made. It's at the point where there is a battle between status quo and moving forward.
The Commission chose to move forward.
Based on assurances given to this Commission by the relevant authorities and security agencies, based on the progress that has been made in the Commission, the elections are scheduled will go on tomorrow, the 26th of October 2017.
In his brief final engagement to the media before the election tomorrow, IEBC Chairman Wafula Chebukati gave a somewhat upbeat assessment of the Commission's preparedness and ability to preside over an acceptable process. This is a step back from the concerns he'd raised just last week about the Commission's ability to deliver a credible election on the 26th, that is tomorrow. His concern now is the police's brutal crackdown on peaceful protesters. He says the rights to protest must be protected.
Excessive use of force by the police is not an illusion. It's a dark reality that some people have unfortunately had to experience in recent times. When the very people that we are expected to run to in times of trouble are the ones attacking us, then as a country we are at our lowest.
The Commission says while most of the election material had been sent out to the constituencies, the IEBC will not hesitate to postpone elections in areas where they felt the security of their staff was endangered or voting would be disrupted.
In cases where there will be problems of voting or delivery of materials or there are no materials, the law is very clear. We have Regulation 55 of the Elections Act and Regulation 64, 55. The polling officer will have a right to inform us, and polling can be suspended to another day, or the the returning officer can still postpone the election in that area.
The IEBC says polling opens at 6 and closes at 5 and called for peace during this time. Sheila Sendeo, NTV.
Tonight, the Supreme Court enters yet another first after failing to raise enough judges to sit in a petition that could have determined whether Thursday's election was legal or had legal backing.
The hearing failed to kick off after only 2 out of the 7 judges turned up for work.
Chief Justice David Maraga offered explanations for the quorum hitch, but Ken Mijungo reports that not all are convinced it was inevitable.
At exactly 11 a.m., 30 minutes after the Supreme Court had indicated it will be in session, a solo judge walks into the courtroom, packed with lawyers and interested parties. Justice David Maraga took his seat and the suspense in court was palpable. He then delivered in a minute and a half the challenge that will now go down in the books of history as a first.
Regrettably, and with due apologies to all the parties, this matter cannot proceed to hearing this morning as earlier scheduled for the following reasons. Following the events of last night, which are in the public domain, the Honorable, the Deputy Chief Justice and the Deputy President of the court is not in a position to come to court. The Honorable Justice Ibrahim is unwell and is out of the country for treatment. The Honorable Justices Ojwang and Wanjara are not able to come to court. The Honorable Justice Njoki Ndung'u is out of Nairobi and has been able to get a flight back to Nairobi in time for the hearing of this matter. That leaves Justice Lenaola and I as the only judges present. As the two of us cannot form a quorum under Article 163(2) of the Constitution, this matter cannot therefore be heard this morning.
The court also indicated that they will hear the petition at a later date, but with the clock ticking, the case that was filed by the 3 voters seeking the Supreme Court to revoke the October 26th election date as gazetted by the IEBC will have been overtaken by events. Halifa, a voter from Nyali constituency, Samuel Mohochi, a voter from Westlands, and Hassan Kamau from Mathare constituency were challenging the Thursday's repeat election. The 3, through their lawyer Harun Ndubi, wanted the Supreme Court to intervene and stop the repeat election.
I think it is important to say that they owe the country, they owe the Constitution, they owe the sovereign people of Kenya an explanation as how they choose to withdraw their labor when they are required to sit. It is not, it's not a favor they are doing this country as judges. They have a duty to sit at all times.
The matter had been certified as urgent and directions issued by the court. It was set to begin today at 10:30 a.m. Lawyers representing the petitioners and the presidential candidates and other interested parties in the case have expressed their dissatisfaction, claiming the lack of quorum is a political mischief instigated by the Jubilee Party.
The resultant effect of what has happened today and probably tomorrow is going to be felt, until, another 10 years. I don't think we're going to recover from what has happened today.
I think I can also read politics into the whole thing. I can read fatigue from Kenyans, including members of the judiciary themselves. I think Kenyans are tired of election and whatever related issues that come out of it, and possibly they really want to go to vote and finalize.
Nobody can assure credibility. How can you assure anything that is in the future? I mean, I'm a research scientist and anything that has not happened cannot be verified. So that kind of talk, biashara zingine kusema, he cannot assure. How can you assure something that you have not done? It is not possible.
This, however, could have not been the first time the Supreme Court will have sat in a case to give directions without meeting the Supreme Court quorum requirements. Lady Justice Njoki Ndung'u once sat alone on a bench when the former Deputy Chief Justice Kalpana Rawal sought interim orders to stop her retirement. The orders were only vacated when a properly constituted bench sat and heard the case. The decision by the President of the Supreme Court now leaves the petitioners with one option: to take a new date. If they choose not to, then the case will not proceed. Ken Mijungu, NTV.
President Uhuru Kenyatta has termed tomorrow's repeat election as a true test of the democracy of this country, saying that the decision of the Supreme Court on the 1st of September, though a bitter pill, has made Kenya the envy of the international community.
The president, who was speaking early this evening at State House Nairobi, has assured all Kenyans that his administration will ensure that the rights, will and security of all Kenyans who wish to vote or not are respected. Leila Mohammed reports.
On the eve of the repeat presidential election, President Uhuru Kenyatta took time to address Kenyans on the state of the nation in light of a repeat election that he termed has further polarized the people.
The last couple of months have truly been a test for each and every one of us. These days have tested our collective resolve to remain united as brothers and sisters, as citizens of one nation under God.
The head of state cited a supreme decision that he says made the country take 10 steps back at a time that it was beginning to heal from partisan tension.
The Supreme Court surprised each and every one of us by declaring the presidential election invalid. And to do this, they did not cite the number of votes, but they cited irregularities that I came to see this ruling as unsettling and distressing as it was indeed an opportunity for all of us, an opportunity for us as a country and as a people to prove to the world that indeed we are a mature democracy.
Just as his main rival, who is not participating in the fresh election, President Kenyatta urged Kenyans to embrace the spirit of brotherhood despite their political leanings, insisting that despite the difficult period that has followed the Supreme Court decision, Kenyans have surprised the world by being calm.
Every single time that our nation has been presented with a challenge, we as a people have risen above the little things that divide us to boldly and with unity shape our destiny.
With hours left to the polls and all possible doors to close it having been closed, the president urged all Kenyans to exercise their rights to vote or not to vote. He has paid homage to public servants whose efforts have ensured that Kenyans can participate in an election peacefully, and has also sent out a stern warning to those who would wish to scuttle the process.
We are a nation guided by the Constitution and the rule of law. And anybody who wishes to express an opinion contrary to what has been planned for tomorrow must do so within the confines of the law.
Leila Mohammed, NTV.
Earlier in the day, the National Super Alliance announced new measures aimed at forcing a fresh election within 90 days as they dismissed the election slated for tomorrow.
And the alliance has now transformed into a resistance movement, which they say will agitate for changes in different sectors.
NASA leader Raila Odinga says they'll be giving their supporters directions on the way forward periodically as they vow to defy government rules.
Kennedy Muredi reports.
Uhuru Park was the stage for the final NASA rally before the disputed repeat presidential election. It is here that NASA followers trooped to listen to what was christened as a meeting on the way forward by their leader Raila Odinga. They had started streaming into the park from as early as 11 in the morning. For hours, they waited. When the leaders finally came,
From today, we are transforming the NASA coalition into a resistance movement. Two, we'll embark on a national campaign of defense of a legitimate governmental authority and non-cooperation with all its organs. Three, boycott the goods and services offered by the businesses whose benefit dictatorship is being established. Four, we shall convene a people's assembly for the purpose of charting our way back to constitutionalism and democracy. Five, we shall mobilize all progressive forces in the country to ensure that a fresh, free and fair presidential election is organized within 90 days.
the leaders say their next course of action is informed by their continued frustrations in the clamor for changes at the electoral body, which have not been forthcoming. The no-show by some Supreme Court judges to rule on the way forward on holding of elections complicated their chances of postponing the elections, thus making them resort to other avenues.
Hatunaheshimu amri yoyote imetoka kwa Uhuru, kwa Ruto, kwa county commissioners,
with regards to demonstrations that had earlier on been called to run parallel to the holding of elections, the leaders have had a change of heart but still hold it is unconstitutional.
Convince your friends, neighbors and everyone else not to participate. Instead, you advise Kenyans who value democracy and justice to hold vigilant prayers away from polling stations or just stay at home.
What will happen in this country tomorrow may well mark the end of the ballot as a means of establishing government.
Jubilee has reassembled and mounted another attempt to stay in power by means that are clearly undemocratic and unconstitutional. Like in August, Jubilee will tomorrow attempt to stay in power by force through a sham election.
The National Super Alliance insists that these measures they are taking now are aimed at forcing an election in 90 days so that they can have what they call a free and fair exercise. Kennedy Muredi, NTV at Uhuru Park.
Well, let's have a quick look at how things are in different parts of the country on this fresh election eve. We start with Siaya, where Andrew Ochieng is. Andrew, how's it looking today?
Well, thank you, Mark. It is a cold and dreary evening right here in Siaya town, and I'm standing inside the compound of the IEBC offices in Siaya County. If you can see right behind me, there has not been much activity here all through the day. Only a handful of officials coming here, and of course the security officers who have been here. But outside the town, there have been a lot of activity. There have been demonstrations from all across, from several centers in the town. There were several demonstrations all through, especially in the morning, and these demonstrations were led by members of parliament, and these members of parliament were urging the people just the agenda that NASA and ODM and all the affiliate parties of the NASA coalition have been having, just urging the people not to turn up and vote, and also urging the locals not to allow themselves to be employed by the IEBC for this particular exercise, the fresh election, and not also to allow their vehicles, and not to offer any logistical support to the IEBC. So that is what was happening all throughout the morning as demonstrations, protests. Even when we were coming here, of course, we encountered protests and in several sections of the road leading here to Siaya town. But the members of parliament urging people not to turn up and vote and not to support IEBC.
We are not going to go that direction. And we are telling them whatever force they have, we have the force that is better than everybody, a force that comes from heaven. And we are going to win this war. We are going to win this war against draconian laws. No reform, no reform, no reform, no. We have enough time. We have enough time as a country. We have 90 days. We can buy 90 days and do election next year. Yes.
Well, of course, that is the side of the politicians, but of course IEBC has also been trying the best it can. Remember, this being one of the very hostile regions where the population and the leaders have said that they will not allow the election to take place. But of course, all the election material is right here at the IEBC offices, the county offices in Siaya town, in the hall right behind me. During the day, we saw some of that material, actually all that material that was there. The problem, however, was that there were no officials who came here to collect that material. All of them from all the very many polling stations are here in Siaya County, afraid of being seen to participating in that exercise, and it was just only security officers who were here. We were speaking to the county returning officers, and she was saying that there has been a problem, of course, getting the presiding officer and the deputy presiding officers, some of the clerks, to participate in that process has been a big challenge for them. But she was saying that the numbers that they have are adequate enough and can be used to allow them to have that exercise.
No transport at all, just a handful of personnel. You know, they are being threatened, they are being intimidated by their neighbors, their community. That yes, you go for that IBC job, and let's see where you'll be after the election. But by the time you come back from the election, you'll find your homestead down. Yeah. So that somebody is actually weighing the money he's going to receive from IBC and what the family has, the property and lives. Then he decides that I would rather not go for the job. So we're actually struggling for both personnel and vehicles. We don't have enough. But the materials are ready. Yeah, Bondo is also struggling with personnel and vehicles. Just a handful have reported, no vehicles. We are hoping when they come in the evening. Yeah, we are not sure if they'll come or not. The same to Raider, the same thing. Raider, no personnel, no vehicle, as at now.
Well, Mark, that has been the situation here in Siaya County. No election material has been distributed to any polling station because of the fears that the county returning officer was addressing there. The fears expressed by the clerks and by all the officials handling the election in all the constituencies, 6 constituencies here in Siaya County, and just the lack of logistical support as well from the population. So all the election material is still here, and we will be waiting from tomorrow to see the direction that the Commission will give from the headquarters going forward on how the election will be carried out here in Siaya County. I would like now to hand you over to Dennis Okare, who is in Kisumu County.
Well, thank you very much, Andrew. Here in Kisumu, things have not been any different from what's happening in Siaya. as we were just coming into Kisumu late this afternoon, we were not able to access the CBD from the main roads that come into the city because most of the roads had huge blocks and tree stumps that were blocking our way coming into the CBD. We also came across some interesting scenarios where we were stopped by residents at some point. They were suspecting that our vehicle was carrying voting materials, ballot papers, and we had to explain to them that we are journalists. That's the situation in Kisumu. Everyone is very, very suspicious, especially those who are driving into the main city because today was a public holiday. Many shops were closed. There were very, very few vehicles here in Kisumu, unlike what happens when it's a very, very busy weekday. However, at one point we also realized that the streets were deserted prior to the Uhuru Park meeting, where we observed that many people were clutching themselves together and listening into what the NASA leaders had to say. Then thereafter, a few people went to the streets, you know, shouting and making chants, no elections, no elections. Police officers, we've noticed, they've been present, but there have been no major incidents apart from one where 2 people were this afternoon shot and injured here in Kisumu after no election protests turned ugly. Now, the 2 were allegedly shot by anti-riot police officers who are battling with protesters around Kondele area, and Oko Kusa was following the event and brings us these details.
Mohamed Juma is said to have taken a bullet on his behind. Another man was shot and injured on the leg following a late afternoon clash between police and protesters. This happened even after Kisumu Governor Anyang' Nyong'o warned residents against engaging in any form of confrontation with the police. Nyong'o was part of a group of local leaders who joined demonstrators on a protest march from Kondele to the IEBC offices, asked NASA supporters in the town to stay indoors tomorrow. IEBC officials in the county were by this afternoon still grappling with preparations for tomorrow's election after most of the clerks picked to oversee the exercise failed to turn up.
There's a problem of insecurity because most of the officials are a bit fearful. You remember during the training also there was a problem, and that has caused a lot of fear in them. In Kisumu we've got 196 polling stations in total, and each station is supposed to be manned by 1 presiding officer, 1 deputy, and 3 clerks.
However, Nyanza Regional Commissioner Wilson Jega assured the officials of adequate security and warned those planning to disrupt the polls of dire consequences.
And let us be very, very clear. Any attempt to disrupt will be met with the full force of the law. So the law is very clear. If you attempt using force, the same force, equal force, will be used against you.
Oko Kusa, NTV.
Well, that's Oko Kusa, and we're following events here in Kisumu very, very closely. And the Nyanza Regional Commissioner there, Wilson Njega, assuring residents that there will be peace. He, however, said that they will provide the same security to IEBC officials who will be managing the election tomorrow. We're also monitoring events at Mamboleo, Kondele, and also Obunga, because as a result of today's events, there is tension in Kisumu at the moment. And tomorrow we expect 1,027 polling stations to open, but there have been a few logistical issues, security challenges as well. There's been no official communication from the IEBC returning officer on what exactly is going to happen tomorrow, because by the time of coming into this bulletin, we were meant to understand that in most parts, voting materials had not yet arrived as expected in the course of the day. This is because many presiding officers failed to turn up to pick the voting materials to take to their polling stations for fear of security, obviously. And one of the other things that has been raised up by the officials is the transportation logistical issues that they have been encountering. So far from the IEBC, we've not received any official communication here in Kisumu on matters regarding the preparedness for tomorrow's voting. But we'll be monitoring events throughout the entire night, and once the polls open tomorrow at 6 in the morning, we'll be sharing more with you. In the meantime, I want to take you over to MIGORI County, where Enoch Sikoli is also standing by. Enoch, tell us what's been happening there as you're following events.
Thank you so very much, Dennis Okari. Indeed, as you said, we're just down here from where you are. This is MIGORI County. Where I am is MIGORI Town. It has been a battleground for the better part of the day between the demonstrators and the police. Remember, the police who are accompanying the IEBC officials and IEBC materials were forced to use tear gas and sometimes to use live bullets in the air to try and disperse some of the protesters who are against the elections here in MIGORI County. I've talked to some of the residents here and they maintain that tomorrow there will be no elections here in MIGORI County. They will do all they can to ensure that no polling station will be allowed to conduct the repeat presidential election. It is, as I talk to you, what I can tell you is that from Rongo, Awendo, Uriri, to here in MIGORI Town, the entire road was barricaded by the youth, and some places, especially in Awendo, they used the rail to block the entire bridge, that no vehicle was being allowed to pass through from Rongo to MIGORI Town. Some were used to had to use the roads in the sugarcane plantations so that they can arrive here in MIGORI Town. But it has been a tough day here. It has been a cat and mouse game here between the police and the protesters. Also, we can understand that the same case was a little bit in Bungoma County, and in Bungoma County, where the information we also get is that 5 presiding officers have withdrawn from the repeat presidential election. They say that their life is in danger, and so they won't be conducting the repeat presidential election tomorrow. Now, let's go to Sharon Baranga to brief us what has happened in the entire country as we prepare for the repeat presidential election.
The atmosphere in Kibra, Nairobi turned murky as youth blocked roads protesting the presidential election set to take place tomorrow. They burnt tires along the Olympic Road bus terminus, saying they will not allow IEBC to distribute ballot material in Lindi, Laini Saba, Makina, Sarangombe and Woodley. These 5 wards make up Kibra constituency. In Bungoma County, the officer in charge of the election, Gregory Onyango, was at a crossroads after 5 presiding officers withdrew from tomorrow's exercise, saying their lives were in danger. He has managed to find a temporary solution by promoting 5 returning officers. The county's Commissioner Joshua Chepchieng warned people who are planning to disrupt tomorrow's exercise that they will be dealt with.
If you don't want it to vote, just go to your shamba, just go to the market, do anything else. Don't interfere with people who have decided to do their voting.
And in Rongo constituency, MIGORI County, residents protested for the better part of the afternoon, blocking roads. They opposed the planned repeat presidential election. IEBC offices in the county remained closed as the officials avoided going to the offices.
Jubilee cannot push us to do what we don't want. Election ni haki yetu. Lakini tukisema tutake election, even if Jubilee says what, we will not vote. Let them carry it in their stronghold and we wait for hours which will be coming very soon.
There's no police station tomorrow will be available.
Yeah. Yes.
No reforms.
Maandamano itaenda mpaka kesho. Tunasema ya kwamba atulali na atutalala. There will be no ballot papers which will enter in the polling stations.
Here there were no indications of activities showing preparation for the repeat election. Businesses were also closed.
Let me tell this is our leaders. Kenya is not for Uhuru or Raila.
Police officers were forced to use tear gas to disperse the crowd, but the NASA supporters said they were going to take part in demonstrations daily to disrupt the election tomorrow. In Kasipul, it was the same. Activity along the road from Kisii to Kisumu was paralyzed for the better part of the day. In MIGORI town, police officers had to overcome hurdles as they ferried ballot materials to MIGORI Teachers College. They later dispersed the crowd and assured IEBC officials of their safety. Sharon Baranga, NTV.
Now, you've seen how preparations have been across the country and in areas, especially in the NASA strongholds, where there were challenges, especially in MIGORI County. As we've seen from the story, that indeed there are no clear signs whether the elections will be conducted here tomorrow. And even we haven't had even communication from the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission from this side of the country. So we are keeping tabs, and we will keep we'll ensure that you get to know what will be happening tomorrow here from early, as IEBC has announced that the polling stations will be opened at 6 in the morning. So we will keep you updated. From here in MIGORI County, I take you back to our studios at the Nation Center. Mark Masai.
Well, thank you, Sikoli, and we're looking forward to an update from there on what will happen, even though some of the activities there in preparation for the fresh election seem to have been disrupted.
And in just a few minutes, we'll be bringing you more reactions from across the country. But first, we take a quick break right here on NTV Tonight.
Welcome back. Decision 2017 coverage continues right here from Eldoret. I'm Victoria Rubadiri, and our focus, of course, is tomorrow's elections from the North Rift region. And I can tell you from what we've seen, Eldoret was teeming with activity. Businesses were open. We even experienced a traffic snarl up trying to get around the town. And we can tell you that the IEBC preps as well as the local leaders are really setting the tone in terms of what we can expect from tomorrow. Speaking of which, right here in the county of Uasin Gishu, the day saw IEBC put up last-minute preparations for the presidential poll. Lois Wangoi reports.
Voting equipment such as ballot boxes and night lamps were received in good time here. They were then distributed to the county's 6 constituencies.
Our preparations have been really good. I should say thorough, because we have received virtually all the materials.
Early afternoon and the arrival of ballot papers was yet another milestone for the IEBC team. Transport was ready to see the ballot papers get to the county's 871 polling stations.
Ya barabara ilikatwa kwa maji, lakini saa hizi wako wanaitengeneza kwa sababu hata gari la kuleta ballot papers limepita.
Harsh weather is expected to be the main hurdle as residents here take to the presidential poll. Granted, the rains have already begun.
I think now in terms of allocating the vehicles, so you have to get the strong vehicles to go to areas we think that might be a bit impassable.
Area County Commissioner Abdi Hassan has assured residents of enhanced security during the polls. Lois Wangoi, NTV, in the county of Uasin Gishu.
So that's the current picture, at least for here in Uasin Gishu County. But what about the rest of the country? Well, IEBC officials finalized arrangements ahead of tomorrow's presidential repeat elections across the country. Ballot materials were dispatched and received in most counties. Rose Wangoi looks at how the situation was in Kajiado, Muranga, Kitui, Narok, and West Pokot counties.
The Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission is ready to hold the repeat of the presidential election. In Muranga, County Commissioner John Elungata said all preparations for tomorrow's poll are complete. Elungata said dispatching of all election materials was at advanced level. The county has over 500,000 registered voters and 584 polling centers. He also ordered that all bars and clubs within Muranga close at 8:30 p.m. to enable people to prepare for tomorrow's voting. In Kiambu County, IEBC officials spent most of the day today ensuring election materials were in good order before transporting them to the respective polling stations under tight security. Over 300 agents have been trained and dispatched to various polling centers. Kitui County, a NASA stronghold, has not been left behind in election preparations. Mwengi Central Returning Officer John Mwawasi assured residents that there will be elections tomorrow, appealing to area residents to come out in large numbers and exercise their democratic right. Kitui County Commissioner Boaz Cherotich said legal action, including arrest and prosecution, will be taken against those involved in acts likely to threaten peace. Preparations for tomorrow's presidential repeat elections in West Pokot County are in top gear. Voting materials have been dispatched to 713 polling stations in the county. West Pokot County Commander Matthew Kuto said security officers have also been deployed in different areas ahead of the exercise. The situation was no different in Kisii County. Security has been beefed up ahead of tomorrow's poll. Presiding officers and their deputies have already been dispatched with the election material to all the polling stations in the county, ready for elections tomorrow. Government officials have guaranteed the local security, adding that 2 police officers have been deployed in every polling station. A spot check in parts of Laikipia and Nyandarua counties has revealed the IEBC officials and security agencies are all set for the polls. It was a beehive of activities at the various tallying centers as officials dispatched voting material to their respective polling stations. In Narok County, preparations for the presidential elections are complete. IEBC officials said they're all set for the poll, adding that voting material and equipment are ready. Ballot materials have been dispatched to 163 polling stations. Returning officer Mark Lempaka, however, expressed fears that there could be difficulties in accessing some areas, especially in the Mau region, due to the heavy downpour being experienced in the area. In Meru County, leaders have urged residents to turn up in large numbers and participate in tomorrow's presidential polls. In a joint press conference, area leaders expressed satisfaction over the preparedness of IEBC and urged residents to maintain peace. In Kajiado County, IEBC officials made final arrangements ahead of tomorrow's polls. The officials said both strategic and non-strategic materials, polling clerks and security officers were ready. The presiding officers and the election clerks are now expected to start preparing for the voting, which begins at 6 in the morning. Rose Wangoi, NTV.
And still on election preparations, IEBC officials in different parts of the coast region have confirmed receiving ballot materials ahead of tomorrow's polls. There were, however, demonstrations in Taita Taveta with leaders in the county as well as in Mombasa insisting there will be no elections. But tough-talking security bosses insist the election must go on. Peter Bwangangi reports.
Ballot materials have been delivered to all polling stations in the 6 constituencies in Mombasa. Earlier today at the Chuda Day Secondary School in Vita, officials inspected the materials before breaking pallets containing the presidential ballot papers. Security was enhanced, the contingent of anti-riot police making patrols in and outside polling stations.
Every polling station is getting a minimum of 2 security officers both for our officials and the electorates.
These presidential ballot papers will be transported to all 187 polling stations here in Vita constituency ahead of tomorrow's election.
In neighboring Kilifi County, preparations continued at various centers. At Barani Secondary School in Malindi, IEBC officials said distribution of materials would commence in the afternoon. Earlier, there had been fears that vehicle owners would not give out their vehicles to transport materials, but it was resolved after they were assured of their security.
Tuko na polling stations 154 na matayarisho kwa sasa hivi tunaweza sema tumefika 99.9% kukamilisha.
In Lamu, IEBC officials said helicopters would be used to transport materials to areas facing security challenges such as Basuba, Kiunga, Faza and other areas in Lamu East. Among those expected to participate in the election are more than 500 people in Witu and Kasaka Kairu who had fled their homes after attacks. They have been assured of their security.
Saizi ndio tunaanza kuelekea polling stations. Kwa hivyo wafanyakazi ambao tumewaajiri wako tayari. Vifaa ambao tutatumia kesho ziko tayari.
Mambo ya maandamano tunasema kwamba haitaruhusiwa. Sababu siku mbili kabla ya uchaguzi mambo hiyo hairuhusiwi kisheria.
In Taita Taveta, opposition supporters led by Voi Member of Parliament Jones Mlolwa and his Mwatate counterpart Andrew Mwadime demonstrated along the streets of Voi. They were, however, stopped before they could reach the IEBC offices. The commission's officials, however, said all is well.
Materials zetu zote zimefika, officials zote wamefika, wameverify kila kitu na wako tayari kwenda kwa uchaguzi.
Hatuendi kupiga kura kesho na tunasindikiza watu wetu wa kaunti ya Taita Taveta wasitoke kupiga kura.
Comments backed by NASA leaders in Mombasa.
Kesho hatutaki kuwe kuna uchaguzi. Na tuna sababu nyingi ambazo zimetolewa na viongozi wetu.
But security officials in the region are talking tough, insisting the election must go on.
Don't disrupt law and order. There must be law and order. And the climate must be uniform. Manga basi Mombasa utapatana na sheria yenyewe.
Meanwhile, the Mombasa Republican Council has allowed its members to decide on whether to participate in tomorrow's repeat presidential poll, asking its supporters to maintain peace.
Sisi hatuwezi kupinga uchaguzi endelee. Na wala hatuna nguvu wala haki ya kupinga uchaguzi kwa sababu uchaguzi ni haki ya wananchi wa Kenya kikatiba.
The group that had been calling for secession of the coast region distanced itself from leaflets being circulated in the region warning residents against voting. Peter Mongangi, NTV, Mombasa.
And final preparations for the repeat presidential poll went on today in Nyeri County with IEBC officials who will preside over elections in different constituencies within the county, picking up voting materials from their respective constituency tallying centers. While the Central Regional Commissioner Ann Ngetich has stated that security has been boosted in the region. NTV's Melita Oletenges reports from Nyeri.
IEBC officials arrived in the different constituency tallying centers today to collect voting material that will be used in tomorrow's election. In Nyeri Town constituency, the returning officer maintaining that the elections will be conducted with great precision.
We've trained the POs and the DPOs thoroughly. We've also done the training for the clerks. So we expect that we are going to have a very good process, especially in the polling stations. Central Regional Commissioner Ann Ngetich has insisted that all polling stations will be under tight security.
We want to assure members of the public that the region has adequate security personnel to safeguard their lives, their property, and indeed to safeguard IEBC officials and all the election materials.
Nyeri County residents say they will exercise their right to vote come Thursday.
Kwanza tumefurahia sana leo kusikia ati uchaguzi bado iko. Saa nataka kila Mkenya ajitokeshe asubuhi na mapema. Sababu kama mimi nitapanga laini saa 6 ya usiku.
Tutakuwa tukivote. Saa 12 ikifika tuanze kuvote. Tukivote tunaenda kuchukua wale walemavu na yule ana tikiti ya kwenda kuvote polling.
Over 60,000 voters registered by the IEBC did not participate in the August 8th poll in Nyeri County. It is all systems go with less than 12 hours remaining to the repeat presidential elections, with the IEBC officials here in Nyeri County maintaining that they are ready to conduct the polls. The Central Regional Commissioner has assured residents of Nyeri County and IEBC officials of their safety before, during and after the elections. Melita Oletenges, NTV in Nyeri.
And that's a picture of what's happening across the country in terms of preparations. The NTV Eldoret studio team will be here and up bright and early to give you the very latest from the North Rift region on Election Day. Well, that does it for me and the Eldoret team. I'm Victoria Rubadiri. We're going for a short break. However, join Mark and Smriti for the very latest and the day's top stories from Nairobi. Stay tuned.
Welcome back and thanks very much for staying with us. Now, Justice Chacha Mwita has today dismissed a petition filed by former Kilome Member of Parliament Harun Mwau seeking to stop the presidential election stated for tomorrow on grounds that the IEBC failed to conduct fresh party nominations as advised by the Supreme Court.
The judge, while throwing out the case, observed that any petition relating to presidential election dispute is to be referred to the Supreme Court because the High Court lacks jurisdiction to stop the process.
It is true that there are situations where both the Supreme Court and the High Court share jurisdiction on the interpretation of the Constitution, but as the Supreme Court stated in the above case, where the presidential election has entered a critical stage, it can deal with disputes that have a bearing on the outcome of that election. That is what I find in the present case. I have carefully gone through each of the prayers in this petition. They have a singular aim of bringing the fresh presidential election to a halt. This is more so apparent in prayer H and I, which seek to have the fresh election cancelled, and the Gazette notices notifying that the election date and the candidates quashed for being null and void. In the circumstances, therefore, I find and hold that this court has no jurisdiction to deal with the petition before it, as the issues raised in the petition fall within the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. Consequently, the preliminary objection succeeds and the petition dated 16th of October 2017 is declined and struck out.
The Jubilee Party has decried what it says is unfair treatment by the Supreme Court.
Party Secretary General Raphael Tuju said a case filed by Jubilee had been slotted for a hearing 8 days after, with a NASA case that was filed yesterday getting a hearing today.
The party officials also warned youth in NASA strongholds against the obstruction of willing voters, saying the party would take action against them.
The Supreme Court, in our humble submission, should treat all Kenyans equally and fairly and without favor in the execution of the law. We'll take serious action, serious legal action against any individual who obstructs or harasses any of our supporters who decide to exercise their constitutional and democratic right to vote tomorrow.
Now, Constable Titus Musyoka, the driver of the Deputy Chief Justice Philomena Mwilu, underwent surgery overnight and is said to be recuperating at the Nairobi Women's Hospital Intensive Care Unit.
He was shot yesterday in the chest and head by unknown people on a motorcycle.
Spent cartridges still lay on the ground hours after a shooting that almost turned fatal late Tuesday evening.
To get the details of this matter. This is the first time in our independence an officer closely working for a senior judicial officer has been affected in a criminal situation such as this. We will not like it to happen, and we will ensure that all judges, all magistrates and all officers of the judiciary are safe and they have nothing to worry about.
Constable Titus Musyoka, a driver and bodyguard to DCJ Philomena Mwilu, having engaged with his attackers here at this seeding vendor's place at around 4:30 p.m.
First and foremost, we are all trying very hard to deal with general crime in Nairobi, but we get concerned when a senior officer of the judiciary is affected in a case like this. I want therefore to take this opportunity to assure all officers of the judiciary, and we've had a lengthy discussion with the leaders of the judiciary just now, and I want to assure all officers of the judiciary that they are safe.
The officer is said to have been sent on an errand by the DCJ to purchase seedlings on Gong Road, a few meters from Marsabit building. Sources tell NTV that the shooters were on a motorcycle and shot him a couple of times before taking off with his gun, leaving him for dead.
Investigations have commenced immediately, and we want to actively find out exactly what happened and get to the bottom of this matter. We have also had the opportunity to speak to Dr. Ndenya and the staff of the hospital. The officer is undergoing treatment. He is in a stable condition, but that's all we can say at the moment because The treatment is going on, and the doctors will have an opportunity to speak some more about it later.
The Ministry of Interior, though stating that the incident is being treated as a normal robbery, the timing and the rank of the judicial officer concerned could make the investigations into the motive that much more urgent. The officer was taken to the Nairobi Women's Hospital along Ngong Road, a few meters away from the scene of the crime, where he is undergoing treatment. All eyes are now on the police force to get to the bottom of the matter. Leila Mohammed, NTV.
Premier League top scorers with betting.
Tonight, the men's national volleyball team will play against Nigeria in the 9th to 14th place qualification matches of the Men's African Nations Cup Volleyball Championship that is ongoing at Cairo or in Cairo, Egypt. Kenya come from 2 sets down to win in sets of 16-25, 20-25, 25-21 and 25-21 and 15-12 against Libya in its last pool game. Despite the win, Kenya, which lost by straight sets to Ghana and Tunisia, finished bottom of Pool B. The other qualification game will see Niger tackle Chad. In the quarterfinals, Egypt play Rwanda, Algeria take on DRC, Tunisia face Morocco, and Cameroon tackle Libya. The championships conclude on Sunday with the top 3 teams qualifying to represent Africa in the 2018 Volleyball Men's World Championship in Bulgaria and Italy. Gor Mahia forward Jojo Odhiambo is hopeful that his club will be better in the continental stage. Blackberry said this as he was named August SJAC Player of the Month. The 2010 Kenyan Premier League MVP has been in fine form for the Premier League champions as he was instrumental with his 5 goals and 6 assists that propelled the team to an unprecedented 16th league title with 4 games to spare. Odhiambo saw off competition from teammate Jacques Tuyisenge, beg your pardon, and Sofapaka's Umaru Kasumba to clinch the prestigious award. He is the 5th player to bag the award after Nzoia defender Brian Otieno, Ulinzi forward Stephen Waruru, Gor Mahia midfielder Ernest Wendo Zuz, Michael Madoya, all who were feted for outstanding performances. Teenager Eddie Nketiah came off the bench to rescue Arsenal by scoring twice in a 2-1 extra time victory over Norwich in the League Cup 4th round. The 18-year-old leveled in the 85th minute for Arsenal, 15 seconds after being introduced before going on to head in a 96th minute winner on his home debut at the Emirates. In other selected results, goalkeeper Claudio Bravo was the penalty shootout hero for Manchester City as they battle past Wolves to reach the quarterfinals in a penalty shootout after the match finished goalless. In Wales, Jesse Lingard scored twice as Manchester United beat Swansea 2-0 at the Liberty Stadium, while Leicester City came from behind to clinch a 3-1 home win over Championship side Leeds United. And that's the sports.
NTV Sport in association with Grants.
There are thank yous.